Hello, my fellow nerds, and welcome back to another How to Write episode. In case you've been living under a rock, there's a recent phenomenon that has been popping up more and more into the mainstream media, and talks about these individuals are getting increasingly more relevant every single day. As you can guess from the title, I am talking about incels. And with the recent election, I have a feeling that there will be more media creators trying to put these people in as straw men, and it will be likely very cringe. So as someone who has interacted with these people a lot and had a lot of former incel friends that were in that community, I've even dated a couple of people that either later became or were almost in said community. So I think I know a thing or two about these people. So we're going to be going into a very interesting topic today, which is writing an incel without being cringe. Now, why should I care? They're only incels, they don't deserve to be written with care. You could say the same thing about a bigot, and look how many people come to watch that video. It's not about making them sympathetic. It's about making the fiction feel real. Making your writing feel impactful instead of, well, cringe. Perhaps one of these people engaging with your content will see it, and instead of thinking, ugh, normies are bullying us again, they'll never understand, they might instead think, wow, am I really like that? Actually impacting people's lives comes with getting things right. And that might mean stepping into the shoes of someone who makes you feel uncomfortable. In order to write an incel, the first thing you gotta do is watch my bigot video, because that will be very important. So if you haven't already, go and watch it. I'll still be here when you're done. Are you finished? Okay, great. Now, the most important thing to remember is that these are people. Not misogyny robots. You are writing a person you may have a hard time relating to, and someone you may not want to understand, but alas, 'tis the price of being an effective writer. Now, how do we write these individuals in a non-cringe way? First, we gotta answer the question, what is an incel? Because different people have different interpretations. Incel stands for involuntary celibate. Now, rather than just spit out a textbook definition at you, I'm going to have somebody else explain it better than I ever could. Take it away, Count Dankula.
What incels are is mostly guys who were born with a face like a bus couch. They have absolutely no job prospects, they don't exercise, they are socially inept, and they really don't make any attempts whatsoever to actually improve social interaction or their sex life, because when it comes to their sex life, they're just absolute nihilists. But apparently, that's women's fault. And society does enforce what is and isn't pretty, so that might tug your heartstrings a little bit, and you might want to try and help these incels out of pity. The problem with that is incels will reject every single piece of advice you give them and make zero attempts to try and actually improve themselves. It's even got to the point where incels actually meme the advice that they're given. See, if you tell an incel to go to the gym, try harder at their job so they get promoted, they actually just start screeching at you, even though that is really good advice that I would advise everyone follow. They'll start screeching at you going, it's not as easy as that, I tried that and it didn't work. No you didn't. No you didn't. You probably did this for about 3 days, and then because you didn't get instant results, you got pissed and gave up.
In order to write the incel, you have to learn about the incel. Let's take a look at some things that incels believe about women. According to Moonshot, quote,
Incels believe that women are evolutionarily predetermined to seek out mates through a process called hypergamy. Hypergamy is premised on the belief that women are more sexually selective, have a narrow view of attractiveness, and lower levels of promiscuity than men. This means that women deliberately seek out the most conventionally attractive mate, reject less attractive men, and remain single when an ideal mate is unavailable. Incels believe that prior to women gaining sexual and financial autonomy, hypergamy was restricted because of their reliance on a husband for physical and material security. With the advancement of women's rights, independence, and sexual freedoms, incels believe that women's hypergamous behavior now dominates the sexual marketplace, where women now select sexual relationships with a small proportion of highly attractive men.
Now, some incels will see this and be like, it's not women's fault, they're just biologically wired to seek attractive men. It's just natural selection, bro. And then there are others that will be like, it is the women's fault, take away their rights now. Now, if all of this was actually true, and this was reality, and you were one of these guys, that would frustrate you. Even though it's not true, it doesn't matter. This is their reality. When you're surrounded by nothing but this echo chamber that repeatedly drills this into your head, that becomes reality for you. And anyone who says otherwise is just not black-pilled enough, or a normie, or a foid, or huffing that copium. The only valid critique I really see that they have is that we have a very highly looks-based society. When you're constantly spammed with this stuff all the time, who can blame them? The rage bait is everywhere you look now, and the body positivity movement seems very woman-focused. Attractive people are more likely to get jobs. They're more likely to get a lot of things. But their view of it is very warped. In their world, every woman has hundreds of sexual partners. Now, are there women out there that exist that have screwed about 100 men? Yes. Are they the norm? Heck no! Does it look like they're the norm because they constantly show up on cherry-picked rage-bait TikTok compilations that exist to get these kind of people to sign up for Andrew Tate's pyramid scheme? Yes. And it's not always about sex. If it were as simple as that, then there'd be a GoFundMe funding tickets to Amsterdam. For a lot, it's about finding a relationship, settling down, having a family, or just not dying alone. When writing an incel, it is important that you know a couple of very important terms. A femcel, a female incel. Most incels believe that these do not exist. Chad, the stereotypical alpha male believed to be favored by society due to his stereotypical white good looks, genes, bone structure, hair, and height. Chad's personality varies from comic to comic. Most of the time, Chad is portrayed as an asshole, so incels think all women want guys that are mean and toxic to them. Stacy. Stacy's are basically female Chads. They're the meme you find on r/NotLikeOtherGirls, like,
other girls wear pink and makeup, and they drink and party and have one-night stands. Well, I sit at home with my sweatshirt covered in pasta sauce and eat pizza and read books.
Stacy's are the other girls. Stacy's basically have their pick of sexual and romantic partners. A typical Stacy will only date Chads and ride the quote-unquote cock carousel, and then, according to incels, complain why she can't find a guy in her 30s. Femoids, foids, or females. Women. Incels will almost never use the term woman or girls. They will almost always say females or alternatively femoids or foids. Normies, non-incels. Becky. Beckies are the majority of the female population and are subordinate to Stacy's. They are average-looking women and have lower social status. All of them still want Chad. The blue pill. Someone who lives in ignorance and doesn't believe that men are discriminated against and that women actually have all the power. The red pill. An awakened man who sees the real world where women are better off than men, female oppression is a myth, and women actually desire traditional gender roles. They're just in denial about it. These don't just consist of incels, they also consist of alpha male kinds of people. Red-pilled men believe that they can use this newfound knowledge to manipulate women and access sex and power. The black pill, a severely depressed version of the red pill. He is aware of the red-pilled world, but believes that there is nothing to be done about it, and has resigned himself to the fact that it is Jover, and women will never like ugly guys no matter what. Maxing, trying to improve yourself by going all in on a certain aspect of improvement in order to get laid. Gym maxing is going to the gym. Looks maxing is trying to improve your looks, be it through surgery, dressing nicer, bone smashing, or gym maxing. Money maxing is earning a fuck ton of money. Status maxing is increasing your social status. C maxing is moving to Southeast Asia. And there are plenty of variations of these. MGTOW, a man who has decided that I am a strong, independent man who don't need no woman. Some often interact with the incel community, but not always. There's a good chunk of them that are just normal people that are like, there's more to life than a relationship, and I'll focus on that. Mogging. The act of dominating someone by being more physically attractive. One can be mogged by a variety of physical characteristics. For example, one can be height mogged by being surrounded by taller people. The 80-20 rule. Incels believe that 20% of men are monopolizing 80% of women for sexual relationships. The sexual marketplace. The dating world. SMV, or sexual market value. A metric that measures an individual's sexual desirability. The wall. According to incels, women's sexual value dies after they hit 30, or 25, or I don't know, they keep decreasing the age. Please don't tell me we're down to 18 now. This is when a woman hits the wall, and is apparently no longer sexually attractive or can have children, supposedly. Also, when writing an incel's dialogue, take everything that is PC and throw it out the window. These are men with absolutely nothing to lose, and it shows in their language. We need to understand what caused him to be like this. It is often a combination of the following, but a couple traits may be lacking. The biggest thing to understand is that the majority of these men have untreated and or severe depression. Every incel I knew either had diagnosed depression or suppressed depression because they were in an environment that didn't believe in it. Or sometimes their depression isn't being treated properly because different depression medication can make or break you. A lot of these men have also been severely bullied throughout their lives and have had the same rhetoric slammed at them that they're ugly, fat, short, they'll never accomplish anything. And more likely than not, they don't, or never had, support systems or friends to help them through this. Just got told to suck it up. Buildup of rejection upon rejection can really weigh you down. Imagine something that you want to do or be so bad, but something that you were born with keeps you from doing that. For me, that was finding a job in my field. I am in a very network-heavy field, and I have autism. Yes, part of that struggle was because of my autism, but it's not on autism entirely. It took a very long time, and it was a time full of really bad thoughts and a lot of sadness, a lot of asking, why am I like this? And blaming other people, blaming myself, asking, why can't I do this? Why was I born this way? But after so many rejections, it really starts to get to you. And soon you start to lose hope, and you just want to give up. You want things to change, but you don't know what needs to be changed. And that's how incels feel about finding a relationship. Almost all of them don't know how to interact with people and or are autistic and don't know how to handle it. Many men have a harder time with social dynamics, whereas it's taught to a lot of women at a fairly young age. A lot of these people don't have any friends, so they just turn to the people in the forum that just fuel all of this. Whatever IRL friends they do have, most incels believe that they're just using them, or they think that that person doesn't actually like them or just tolerates them, and so they cut them out. Most of these men don't have a good support system either. Good family members would actually talk to them, try to introduce them to other people, try to help improve them. Or maybe these family members do exist, but this guy is so far down the rabbit hole that he can't be saved. And this contributes to the eternal doomer mentality. They believe that no matter what they do, they will never achieve that goal. Most of the incels have taken the black pill. Think of it like this. Imagine the recent Georgian elections. Think of that sinking feeling that everything you worked for, everything your country built up, your passion for liberty, democracy, finally having a united Georgia. That will never be achieved due to circumstances completely out of your control. In Georgia's case, it was rigged elections. You feel like your life is going to continue getting worse because you can't change the government. All you can do is sit and watch everything fall apart due to factors completely out of your control. Now take the Georgian Dream Party and replace that with ugliness, fatness, or another insecurity, and you have incels. Now, there are some incels that aren't totally women haters and are just severely depressed, but the majority of them blame anyone but themselves, mostly women. Sometimes it's only partially their fault. Men who lack social skills and or are autistic have it much harder than women with the same social skills. People are far more likely to reach out to a woman having an emotional breakdown than a man. And in a society increasingly obsessed with appearance as seen on TikTok and Instagram, those negative body images can leach down to men too. Except men are told to suck it up and that no one cares about their issues. And then they find podcasts that actually will address their concerns, and more often than not, those podcasts are run by not good people. They're run by people who actively promote this kind of harmful content so they can sell these vulnerable men their products and pyramid schemes. All of these combined with one another eventually coalesce and fester into a large pit of depression and desperation. And it's not just incels. This can happen to anyone about anything. This is how everyday, a-religious Tunisian men who drink, smoke, and don't pray end up joining ISIS. It is proven that this kind of negative buildup leads to extremism. And most of the time, because they're men, they just get told to suck it up. Be a man. Don't cry about it. And sometimes you become addicted to that rage bait, and you start to actively seek out things that make you upset. And that feeling just gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And then it explodes into a mess of whatever this is online. For once, I would say maybe minimalize the amount of times you copy and paste from a certain forum, and if you do, try to expand on it more in your own words. Unless you are having this character be solely behind a screen or autistic. This is because when most incels are in public, they mostly don't talk at all. Because most of these men are very, very socially awkward and don't know how to talk to people. But when they do talk, a lot of them have a very big lack of empathy for other people. So when writing their dialogue, try to keep it a little bit more self-centered. Law & Order Special Victims Unit did it perfectly. Holden refers to the person who called him out for being a creep as an abusive partner to the girl that he later stabbed. You notice throughout the episode, his lines primarily focus on himself and how he feels. Incels believe that they are the victims of everything, and that everything is out to get them. They have been wronged, and society needs to change to accommodate them. Incels really only use this terminology when they're with other incels, angry enough to where it slips out, which honestly doesn't take too much, or if they are autistic, but I will get to that in a moment. Otherwise, copy-pasting directly from the source could make for a cringe line. But incels themselves are often cringe and say cringe-worthy things. How do I avoid the cringe paradox? Well, then make the people in the story react as if they know it is cringe, indicating that you, the writer, are not cringe, rather it is the character themselves that is acting in a cringeworthy way. Let's draw on some real-life examples. The best source of real-life examples, of course, I'm gonna go with the classic Reddit, r/niceguys, r/incel-tears, or just ask Reddit on people who formerly used to be incels. If you're really tough and don't mind the FBI watching you, try going to an actual incel forum. These people tend to air out all their raw feelings on there, so hopefully that'll be enough to get you in character. There haven't been too many examples in media yet, but I'll look at one of the few that I've seen so far in Hell of a Boss. Not exactly an incel, but pretty close. I can tell that Vivzy took comments from her haters and just used that for the dialogue of this character. And it works. And when this character does say something cringe, the people around him cringe too. I thought this character was really good because I saw a lot of my haters in this character too. And some of my fans. A bad example would be the Ghostbusters reboot. I didn't mind the Ghostbusters reboot at first. The cast are naturally talented and I always enjoy Kate McKinnon. The writing they were given, though, really fell on its face every now and then, especially when it came to the villain. The bully background, yeah, it makes sense, but his lines are way too generic supervillainy, which is what happens when you don't put yourself in that person's shoes and just write a straw man. If they wrote it so that the ghosts were the closest thing that he had to friends and he treated them that way, that would actually be interesting and make for a compelling villain. It would also give us a lot more motivation than just, oh, he was bullied in school. The final monologue at the end was getting better, and then they ruined it with the mostly dudes line. That threw everything off and made me not take it seriously. Same goes with the dude that harassed Aaron on the street. You can tell that the people that wrote this don't know how to troll. Law & Order Special Victims Unit has a couple of instances of incels. The first is in Season 16 in Holden's Manifesto. This kid did his best Elliot Rodger impression, and honestly, I can tell the kid watched Elliot Rodger's Manifesto like 20 times. Just as cringe as the original. But they could have got a more unattractive guy, but honestly, not all incels are horribly unattractive. But this guy absolutely got the part because of his acting, and less because he looked the part. This kid did his homework. The backstory was very smart and well written. Uses the perfect terminology, the reason Holden went after the women, and the rhetoric he used are things typically spouted on incel forums. And they are definitely things that incels would say in real life. The backstory fits perfectly. The divorce, the history of bullying, the history of rejections, the autism. I don't know if this guy is autistic, by the way, but I think he did a good job. This actor has my autistic stamp of approval. Law & Order writes Holden's lines perfectly, keeping in mind his perspective. Notice how he calls the manager that got him fired for being a creep abusive. This is a perfect way to show that you are thinking of him as a person and less of a gimmick. Holden's manifesto did a great job portraying Elliot Rodger, but not every incel is Elliot Rodger. Not all of them have the same level of wealth and privilege. And of course, not all of them go on murderous rampages. There's another episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit called Revenge. This is Season 20, Episode 4. These incels are a little less realistic. The vocabulary and the acting are fine, but they're mostly all stupid for the sake of the plot. An incel would probably never tell a cop that he doesn't believe in grape. Especially one as neurotypical as this guy. Same with the third guy. That's probably one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in media. Wait, never mind, I've seen Harry Guardian Spice and Ruby Season 7. Though, I think this is more of poor plot writing, because there's no way a real incel would ever tell a normie this stuff, much less a fucking cop. Everything these incels are saying would make perfect sense if said to anyone but a cop. But these guys definitely look the part a lot better. The second incel did a much better job. Dude actually had a reason to crack when his mother was threatened, so his confession makes sense. His appearance and acting were also a lot better than the others. Dude played his part to a T and pulled off what would be normally cringe incel lines like it was real. The outburst in the last one was mostly good. Incels tend to become more irrational as they get emotional, as most people do, so this outburst almost makes sense. Almost. Having him do this outburst right as he was about to get off scot-free is kind of another instance of being stupid for the sake of the plot, in my opinion. But they get the vernacular down. The plot of this episode was actually really interesting though, and kind of made me want to actually start watching Law & Order. Now that you've learned all the basics, it is now time to build an incel! Here are the basic outlines you need to build your fellow incel. Age. This may not seem like a very important detail, but it is. Teenagers tend to be more dramatic and full of rage, not realizing their face isn't set until they're like 25. When you're a teenager, everything seems like it's the end of the world. This includes 18 and 19-year-olds. Meanwhile, wizards, or incels over 30, are more likely to have been shaped by more experiences, which has either made them more depressed, angry, or accepting of their situation. What do they think is wrong with them? Incels establish their unattractiveness through a range of measurements, including their height, weight, bone structure, specific facial features, baldness, wrist size, position on the autism spectrum, and numerous other biologically determined features. What is actually wrong with them? There can be some truth to their statements. Maybe they are a little fugly or overweight, or maybe they see a person and their brain just goes, no. But most often there is something else, like a bad attitude, never leaving his house, having no interests outside of video games, having no jobs, having no ambitions, bad hygiene, not shutting up about the manosphere. Things that make this guy probably insufferable to be around for men too. Which pill have they taken? Do they think they can actually change things? Or do they think that they are doomed forever? What caused them to be this way? This is the same question you're asking when you're writing a bigot. Could it be a specific event that happened? Numerous rejections? Severe depression? Growing up in a bad household? All of these? Women hating levels, also known as how much do they blame themselves versus society? Have they accepted that they're just going to be forever alone? Do they think women should be stripped of their rights and sold as property to men because clearly they're not the problem? It's women choosing to be stuck-up bitches. If you're European, think of it like a coalition. They all believe in the manosphere stuff, but they have different ways of going about it. Some think that women shouldn't have sex until marriage. Some think that women owe them sex on the first date. Some believe in both, somehow. How autistic are they? I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm saying this as an autistic person when I say it will absolutely affect your character's dialogue, actions, and how into the movement they are. If you watch any of my writing autism videos, autistic people will often repeat phrases they see or hear Because our brain thinks, I don't know how to get my point across. Let me just yoink this sentence from something I've seen and just repeat that. A lot of men in this community are autistic. A lot of them don't know that they are, but a lot of them are at least on what was once called the Aspie side of the spectrum. Communities like this can become a special interest, which can lead to this character being very entrenched in this mentality and having little shot of redemption. Once your brain is hardwired into being invested in the community, it's really hard to get out of. I mean, one of my special interests used to be my political identity, and that ended up really badly and nearly messed up my life and got me involved with some really bad people. Copying and pasting from an online rant could result in cringe, but autistic people are naturally cringe, so it makes sense. We kind of just have a natural talent for it. And finally, how much do they actually interact with society? More interaction with society and actually having friends or family outside of the forums likely means that they're less incel-brained, more normal, and more likely to leave the community. But it may also mean that they will often go off on rants about the manosphere. Very, very annoying rants. Less interaction with society means that they likely will just sit there quietly and not talk to anyone when they actually do go outside. So it's very likely that they won't explode in an incel rant in public because there's no way that they'd have the guts to say what they have to say online in public. The people that rarely leave their houses aren't gonna suddenly turn into Bagel Boy. But that also means they're less likely to improve and may be more tied to the online community and possibly scared to leave it. If they have no friends, the forum is likely all they've got, so they may self-sabotage in order to keep the closest thing they have to friends. Congratulations, you have created your incel. Have fun doing whatever you're doing with him. Until then, keep on studying.